Everything paranormal. Para-X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Merry meet and merry part, bright the cheeks and warm the heart. For tread the circle thrice about, to keep unwelcome spirits out. Bide within the law you must, in perfect love and perfect trust. Mind the threefold laws you should, 3 times bad and 3 times good. These 8 words the read fulfill, and ye harm none, do what ye will.
Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. Now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Merry meet, everybody, and welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. My guest tonight is Jenny Tyson, and we're going to be talking about her new book, The Art of Channeling. Now, Jenny's an illustrator and writer, a medium, and she studies intuitive skills. She's the author of Spiritual Alchemy and The Art of Scrying and Dowsing. Now, if anybody has any questions or comments for Jenny, you must be in the Para-X chat room, and then send me a private message. And if you're not here but listening to the live show and want to come join us, we're at paraxradionetwork.com. Jenny, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I just thought of something, we were just talking right before we called you in. Right after we called you in. And you're the second guest this month that lives on an island.
Oh.
It just struck me because I think that's really nice living. And, all of us here in the hustle and bustle of the city, it's nice to think of being on an island. So.
Oh yes, it's much better than the city. I grew up in a city, and then I couldn't stand it. I couldn't wait to get out of there. And I've been out in the country for decades now. The island just sort of, our moving here just was sort of, we didn't even realize that we were like on an island within an island when we came here. Wow. And we found that out later. But just were led to the right place, and everything worked out. So it's a very nice little place.
Mm-hmm. And I'm very jealous of a 1/4 acre for gardening. Yeah, just think of me every time you get out there.
Oh, I love getting out there, and I love getting out there and doing the gardens. I've got big garden. I've got actually more than I can manage, because by August, I'm just like, oh my gosh, do I have to go weed that thing again?
Yeah, there goes the rub. There's always a negative, but boy, it would be so nice to have
vegetables, those fresh vegetables I get every year. I have fresh herbs every year, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah, it would be. All right, now I'm going to stop drooling. Let's talk about the book. It's introducing a new method of channeling, and as the subhead of the book says, it entails modern methods for true telepathic and spirit communication, not only of our loved ones on the other side, but it teaches the reader how to communicate with nature spirits, angels, ghosts, extraterrestrials, and the universal mind.
Yes.
And that's the source of all knowledge, but I want to hear a little bit more about the universal mind.
Well, the universal mind is really a mystery. And you can, you learn a little bit about it, and then, it's a source of all information. So like, if you have something you want to find out, or someone you want to find something out about, you can go through the universal mind and find out that information. If you know how to do it. The only limitation is your skill. But it also has personality, and it has, like, the main attribute of it, I would consider to be love. This is it's a unifying thing that draws all intelligence, all consciousness together, as far as I can tell. But
So, yeah, go ahead.
I come
Sorry.
up with one description. And as I continue to explore that, it's like, well, I found out something different about it, and my definition changes a little bit. It's just like my mind is too small to even comprehend how vast this is.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And in trying to connect with the universal mind, is that different than trying to channel spirits or angels or ghosts or whatever?
No, it's no different. The sense of bigness might be more more pronounced, but honestly, the more I try to get it to define itself beyond like a specific presence, the less I'm able to do that. It's very difficult to get that distinction, and I can't always make that distinction. It's kind of strange. They're saying that everything is one, all consciousness is one consciousness, but different aspects of it. I would say probably that's the most accurate description, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. Well, we'll probably get back into that a little bit later on, but, it just came out of my head. Is it more difficult to contact some than others?
No, I don't find it difficult. I've never had like a situation where I wasn't able to make contact. It's if you follow, I found that the method, if you follow that, there's always some contact. Now, some days I'm better than others. But I feel like the limitation isn't on the other side. It's on my side. It's my limitation, how well I'm doing that day, how well I'm making that connection, more so than what the other entity or what the other mind or aspect is presenting to me. I feel like that information is probably complete, but it is my limitation that is causing the limitation, if there is any.
Yeah, okay. Well, before we jump into the book deeper, give us a little backstory on yourself. What led you into mediumship and channeling?
Well, I had a very strong interest in the occult, particularly in Enochian magic. And if you've read my first book, Spiritual Alchemy, it's talking about my encounter with the spirits who claim to be the spirits of Dr. John Dee and his medium, Edward Kelly. So my interest started out as a cult, but I was really, I didn't have a natural mediumship ability. I wasn't able to see spirits. I wasn't able to hear them. It was very frustrating. And so we decided to do a project where Donald was working on a project regarding the history and everything of Dr. John Dee. So we decided to try to make contact with the spirit of John Dee using a Ouija board, or not really a Ouija board, something that I had actually made that was specific to Dr. John Dee. Well, that we made a connection that night, and that's what started the ball rolling. And that was the first time and when I realized that, oh my goodness, we've really made contact, that's when I decided to search for a quicker way outside of a spirit communication word. I wanted something that worked faster. So I found, I learned to use a PSV7 ghost box, and I made the connection with the ghost box very easily. I could use a ghost box very effectively as a medium. That's where it all started. And eventually, using that, I developed clairaudience. And then once that really, because I was middle-aged by the time this happened. I was in my 40s. And it really caused some disruption because I couldn't control it. It just seemed like I was being bombarded all the time. Just the slightest little bit of focus, and then I was hearing a spirit somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to learn how to control it. So I took some classes in controlled remote viewing through Lynn Buchanan's group of remote viewers. They have advanced students that teach beginners. So I studied up through the advanced levels, and that kind of got my feet on the ground. I started and then I started to work on my own techniques from there. And so my techniques are strongly influenced by associative remote viewing and control remote viewing.
This might be a good time to explain, because some people don't know the difference between a medium or a channeler, or are they one and the same? Do you have to be a medium to be able to channel?
No, anybody can channel. Telepathy is universal in humans. All humans are capable of telepathy, and channeling is mostly telepathy. Now, except for trance channeling, that adds another component, like another altered state component to the channeling process. But the ability to communicate telepathically is present in all human beings. In fact, it's present in, I believe, most higher animals. Dogs, if you ever watch a dog waiting for somebody to come home, they know when they're coming. And cats even more so. So higher animals are able to communicate or have some telepathic perceptive abilities.
There are people, though, that swear that they have no capability of doing anything like that.
I love those people because I sit down with them and show them how and work them through a session in 15 minutes. They're doing something, and then they want to run away.
Oh, wow.
They're like, oh my gosh, what did you do to me?
Well, it's a tough task to let the walls down. So congratulations for you to be able to do that, because that makes it easier.
It does. I've had a lot of people tell me that, and then when I get them working, then in classes they find that, I can do this. It's not what I thought it was. A lot of times it's not, the experience of it is not what you expect. The experience of it can be anything from a very intense trance experience to something that's basically like sitting down and writing a math problem. In intensity, it's not very intense.
What do you start with? I mean, what is the first exercise or whatever to let them see that they have the ability?
Well, what I do is that we'll discuss who we're going to talk to. Like with the CE, are you familiar with CE5? Close encounter. Okay. This is where people get together as a group and intentionally contact extraterrestrials. Sometimes. Now, the original idea was to try to get them to fly a craft overhead. Also we try to communicate as well. And there's been some pretty spectacular experiences with that. But anyways, I lost my thought.
About the first thing that you get them to make them aware that they can do it.
Right. So we get questions together, and then we decide who we're going to talk to. And so I mix up the questions. I put them in a grab bag. I take one out. I don't tell anybody what the question is. Nobody knows what the question is. I don't know what the question is that we're going to try to channel information on. So we set that aside, and I say, sketch the first thing that comes to mind. Just sit here and doodle. And in the doodling, when they do that, they find that some aspects of the doodling are almost always related to the question that's being asked. And that makes the first level of connection. And as you practice, you get into more and more detail. You get braver and start writing stuff down, writing descriptions. But it's all centered around sketching. So that's where I started out at. We started out with sketching. Working with trance comes later on. And the trance experience can become more intense. So I like to get people used to something that's a little bit more mundane, something that's a little bit more where you feel like you're in control. before you get into something that can kind of get weird on you.
Okay. So the book, and basically you said the book is beginner friendly. So
Yes.
you're making mediumship available to everyone.
Yes.
And that's good, you know.
Yes.
Now you pretty much cover all bases, and there's some that start out with you start out with the channeling overview, and then you discuss dowsing and the spirit board and channeled perceptions, trance channeling basics and methods, and boy, keep going. And you also have 3 case studies in the book. Now,
Yes.
what do they entail?
Okay. I got to look through here again. One of the case studies, the one that would, for our Wiccan audiences, for people who are into animal, what is the word, totems
Mm-hmm.
and animal spirits, I did a case study with the raven spirit.
Mm.
And that was one of the most fascinating channeling experiences I think I've ever had, because I'm not an animal totem type person. I did not know if I would be able to do it or not.
Mm.
And I knew it could be done, but I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
the session turned out to be just an insanely crazy, because I was seeing a park that I go to, the Dalem Lake Park, from the perspective of a raven.
Mm.
And the raven was telling me where to find food and what dangers to watch out for, and things like that. And the sketches were just amazing. The ravens can pick out the shelter house there. They were warning about cars. They warned me about the cars, the snapping of the doors, the slamming of the doors of the cars is a threat to them. They find that sound to be threatening. They don't like that sound. They don't like the idea of being underneath the shelter, like going underneath a roof.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like that idea at all.
Mm.
And these were things that I did not, I like when I watched the ravens, like we have a lot of ravens around our house.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was watching them, and I realized that they never go into a situation where they're underneath something that looks like a roof.
Mm.
And they're always looking on pathways for food. And that's what they pointed out as a pathway for food. And the spirit seemed to think that, okay, you want me to find food for you.
Mm.
So that was one of the case studies. The second case study was that was the Edward Kelly one, wasn't it? Yeah. That was the one with Edward Kelly. And what was I looking for? I was looking for like the location where they were doing alchemy, and I got really strong images of some of the equipment that they used, and they had the alchemy set up. A lot of the stuff was away from the house, which makes sense because John Dee had like 10 kids at the time. Because this was the channeling session was in Mortlake. It was his home in England. So they had a lot of people. They had a lot of people around that place. Much more than, I mean, his diary doesn't really tell you that, but the place it was crowded. There were people coming and going, and by boats and by horses. It was muddy, unbelievably muddy.
Yeah.
And so, just seeing the equipment and the smells, the smell. In there, and that was a very interesting, insightful. And the last one was on Edgar Casey on the use of crystals, and that one was had very unexpected information for me. And I feel like that was just a really crazy, interesting. Let's see. There's the Edgar Casey one. The etheric and energetic effect of stones, of crystals. This was, and it was just like this energy flow sort of thing. A lot of energy flowing, a lot of water water perceptions, that things that didn't seem like there was like a combination of geometric shapes and then the sense of flow through that, and a sense of like pushing and pulling the flow through here, through there, and everything else. It wasn't so much a sketchy kind of thing, like where I'm getting a lot of visual images, but it was like a visceral sense of flow and pushing energy around.
Well,
So
they're
those
interesting. Yeah, they're good readings.
Yeah, those were very interesting case studies. My favorite one was the Raven one, though.
Yeah.
I actually, when I wrote the book, I hadn't planned on that, but somebody asked me to do it. And like I said, I wasn't sure, but I just decided, well, I'll take a try at it and see what happens, you know. And that one was a surprise in the amount of detail of the imagery and the type of imagery and the insight that I got regarding how birds behave. You know, those particular birds.
Yeah, I like ravens too. A lot.
We've got some big ones around. We've got ones that they're big, they're almost as big as eagles. Some of them.
Wow.
Yeah, they're really big birds.
They eat a lot, probably. They have good appetites. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but I want to, I know some mediums who go into full trance and others go into a light trance. And so can people channel without having to enter a trance state at all?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, doing the trance, I like to have something on paper before I go into trance. And again, this shows my the influence from the remote viewing. That, I mean, it's done like on sketches on paper, and then you take that information. You don't reveal the topic, and then you go into trance. But I feel like I have to have something down on paper before I even attempt a trance. And the paper sessions, when I've done them and compared them, like, especially with physical places, like the Raven session was a park, but I had several different places close by that it could have been, but it was very clearly that park. The paper sessions have great detail and have really good accuracy. So, I mean, I think as far as like if you compare the accuracy, my accuracy on a paper session where I'm just sitting there focused but not really in a trance, to a full like a deep trance session, I don't really find a whole lot of difference from the accuracy point of view. Like when you're looking at the accuracy and you're looking at the detail. Now, the trance does have the advantage of it. It's a more intense experience, and more intense experiences can help you connect better. They help you with that, making that connection. So having that kind of experience will help your paper sessions do better, because you're more aware of that connection, and you're seeking out that connection as you do the paper session. That does help. But you don't have to be able to do a trance. You don't have to have any special ability to do this.
Okay.
It's a very natural thing. Like, I mean, even if you're just like, I hide the target because it's easier for me to not get into belief and expectation bias if I don't know what the target is, if I don't know what the question is. Okay. But yet I've done sessions without doing that, and having that experience of, I know what it feels like when I have a perception that's more or less going to probably be a true perception. Because I've had that experience, I can sometimes do a session without having to hide the target. I'm careful with that because I don't want to fall into belief and expectation bias. But you can train to do that too.
Okay. So do some people have the ability to channel without even knowing it?
Yeah, I would say most of the people don't know they have the ability.
But sometimes they're doing it and they don't know it, and somebody mentions to them, you know. I know somebody that was talking to a friend of hers, and they were just having a conversation, I guess, about her boyfriend. I don't know what it was, but she said the conversation lasted about half an hour, and she thought they were really having a good time. And when they stopped, one of them was talking, was the medium, and when they stopped the conversation and changed the subject, she looked at my friend and said, "Well, thank you for the channel." And my friend was like, "What?"
Oh my goodness.
And the medium said, "Well, yeah, you were channeling." And so I said, "Well, maybe that's because maybe it wasn't me that made all that great sense that you think I was telling you, or something."
Yeah.
But so that can happen, though. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Right.
Oh yes.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, I want to make a distinction between that kind of full trance channeling and then what I'm teaching a beginner to do. The book is focused on people who either don't believe they have the ability or don't know they have the ability. You don't have to believe in it in order to do it. It's universal. I believe in universal talent. That means that everybody can do it. Everybody has the ability, the inherent ability to channel, because we are all spirits running around in a meat suit.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and as spirits, we have the natural ability to communicate with other spirits. It's a perfectly natural thing to do. Now, when you're joining your consciousness with another spirit and allowing them to come forward with your physical body, that's a little bit different. That's something that takes a lot of skill to do that. And if you don't have the natural ability, it's a little bit more difficult to do that particular type of channeling than it is like what I was teaching in this book. But as far as like what's most accurate, it doesn't make it's not going to be more accurate if you do it that way than if you do it by the method in the book. The method in the book, you will have accurate information.
Okay.
It's just a different experience.
Right. Well, you kind of build up into different things as you get going.
Yeah.
Got to start somewhere, right?
And the chances of you having an experience like that, if you want to do mediumship, the chances of you having an experience like that increase as you're doing the simpler method where you're still very much in control.
Yeah. All right, we've got a break in about 2 minutes, so I'm just going to ask you a quick question. There's so many unique things that you teach in the book that make really good sense, but I never would have thought about like how to choose the best spirit for the situation and how to format the questions to ask. So, some people say they'd be really happy to get what they take what they get, but we do have options, don't we?
Yes, we do. And I always encourage people to choose the spirit that you want to talk to, because focus eliminates problems with spirits who might not be might not have your best interest in mind. And if you have a strong focus, it just eliminates a whole bunch of problems that can arise.
So yeah, I mean, I just never thought of that before. Most people that I know will say, well, I'd like to contact a loved one or something, and that's fine. And, but, between the extraterrestrials and the angels and God knows, It goes on and on, nature, elementals and stuff. It's really neat. So that was something that I thought, whoa, this is really, really interesting.
Now, spirits will sometimes, once you learn how to channel, spirits will approach you and want to talk and want to communicate something. It's not unusual. That's not an unusual thing to happen. I run into, like when I go hiking, I occasionally run into elemental spirits that talk to me, and I respond, or I look over, and they're like, wait a minute, you can hear me? Clairaudient. And when I'm hiking, I'm kind of like in that state where I'm quiet enough that I can hear things.
Yeah.
Where I could hear a spirit talking. if they decide to approach me. Sometimes I hear them even if they're not approaching me, and that's again because my focus. It takes time to develop that focus, and I developed the ability very, very late in life. I mean, most people, you're either born with the ability or not. I developed it in my 40s. So I think the dynamics of learning to focus that ability are a little bit different when you learn it in later in life like that.
Yeah. But it's good that we can, Yeah. Some people are late bloomers, and I think when you get something like that now in later life, you weren't supposed to have it earlier. You might not have been up for it, or whatever. So it comes when it's necessary.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to take a quick break, so guys, don't wander off, and we'll be back in 2 minutes, and the countdown starts now.
There's more Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks right after these important messages.
I was in the hospital with my son for 18 months.
When he got injured, I wasn't prepared, but I knew I had to be strong.
When I was told about John's injury, I was in complete shock. I just remember rushing into his room and giving him a big hug and letting him know I was there.
These veterans and families are just a few of the heroes we serve at Homes for Our Troops. For thousands of severely injured veterans, everyday life is filled with barriers.
It was really the little things throughout the house. Counters that you can't roll up to. I had to drag my wheelchair down steps.
I want to help, but he is so determined.
At Homes for Our Troops, we build specially adapted custom homes with features like wheelchair access, roll-in showers, and automatic door openers that allow them to function independently and focus on their recovery and family.
This house is freedom. It's hope. It's a new beginning.
This house has given me my family back.
To learn more, visit hfotusa.org.
Throughout time, events have occurred that have shaped human history. Spirit voices from the past have many stories to tell, and for the past several years, channelers Barry and Connie Strom have been conducting live channeling sessions and relaying those stories and messages from those on the other side. We invite you to tune in to Barry and Connie's new show, Channeling History, on the Para-X Radio Network, every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, as they relay the messages of those voices from the past, the ones who have witnessed history firsthand, and those who have made history themselves.
Hey everyone, it's Marla. If you like tonight's episode of Stirring the Cauldron and the archive podcast as well, take a look at the show's YouTube channel and check out the dozens of shows that are there just waiting to be heard. New shows are added each week, and while you're there, why not subscribe? It's free. And if you click on that tiny little bell icon at the top of the page, you'll be notified when new shows are available. Just go to youtube.com and then type in Stirring the Cauldron Para-X and the link will appear. Just like magic.
Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
My guest tonight is Jenny Tyson, and we're talking about her book, The Art of Channeling, which offers modern methods for true telepathic and spirit communication. And I want to touch on telepathic contact with living beings using channeling. In the chapter on spontaneous channeling, you speak about spirits who live in the nexus or the spirit world,
yes,
and those who live in the physical world. How can we differentiate between the two?
Spirits that inhabit the nexus are oftentimes spirits that are either native to a different universe or they had lived physically in a different universe and then now inhabit the nexus. The nexus is, I don't know if I would call it a spirit world or a universe. I'm not sure what it is. It's different. It's a little bit different than like something that's a parallel universe, and it's a little bit more and it's different from the universal mind. That's one of the things. I think it is distinct from those two things. In the spirits that inhabit that region, I'm not sure if they're actual spirits or it's like some kind of recording, some kind of memory or something like that. And that's something that is a more recent discovery. In working with human initiated extraterrestrial contact, you hear a lot about interdimensional beings, but I'm not sure that they're actually interdimensional. I think they're physical beings that may be using projecting, doing like an astral projection to this zone that's sort of an in-between zone, and then that's where we encounter them. So it's a complex thing, and I'm constantly trying to figure out more, studying it more, looking at different things, trying to learn more about it, because it's not something that I've really heard a whole lot about.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's so much out there, I mean,
yeah,
it needs explanation when you probably don't even know what to ask until you get the question in your head, when you're doing something.
Yes.
Yeah.
The interdimensional beings, the beings that you encounter within the Nexus, can tell you just about anything. They have all kinds of information. They can, like, if you want to learn something, that's a good place to go to learn stuff. For example, I was curious. I had read a couple of books on ET encounters and healing, and ETs, the vast majority of trace evidence of extraterrestrial encounters on Earth are healings, and there's thousands of them. I read through probably close to 500 case studies over the last summer, and more so, and a lot of times you don't see craft. So I was curious. One of the things I wanted to find out about was how do they train their healers? And these are physical beings. There's basically three species that are most prominent in the arena of healing human beings from disease. Mm-hmm. And so I picked out one of the species that was closest to us. They're called the Nordics. They're human hybrids or human even. And I wanted to find out how they train their healers. So that was one of the questions in the grab bag, and I really had an interesting session. But the focus of their training seems to be on astral projection and a sort of bilocation. And then they use from what I could tell, they use this zone. It's like an astral projection zone of some kind, and they pull people through there, and they do healing through that zone. It changes things. You can change things. You can create things, and then spit it out on the other side, and it's changed. So that's one of the things that the Nexus is, that I think the Nexus is used for. Another thing is, I think you can, you've heard of apports. Teleportation. Sure. Okay. Yeah. I think that the apport occurs through the Nexus, that it goes from the physical world, it goes through that zone, the Nexus, and then pops out somewhere else in the physical universe.
That makes sense.
But it's part of the universal mind, but the Nexus itself is something different. It's a place where things are not only it's not only a place where information is stored. It's a place of communication. It's also a place where things can be changed and where things can be transported.
That sounds like something we should have down here. Seriously, it would be very helpful.
Well, the basic skill of learning to do this is learning how to channel. That's one of the things that you do. If you're in contact with the being, they help you be able to access some of that. I mean, humans, you have to learn how to do it. We're still evolving. We still need to learn things.
Yeah, we've still got training wheels.
That's
compared,
right. Yeah. Compared to some of these species, right?
Yeah.
But we have innate access to it, so we have the potential to be able to do all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. I like that we have the potential. I like that we can do channeling. I mean, this is good.
I am a firm believer in universal talent.
There you go.
I believe that anybody can do any kind of intuitive skill. I think anybody can do it if you put your mind to it. I mean, I'm an example of that. I had nothing. I wasn't psychic. I wasn't, when I was younger, I tried to do like psychic experiments. I was a total bomb. I couldn't do anything. And I certainly couldn't channel. I was following following these evocation thing, grimoires and everything. And I wasn't really coming up with very much. And I'm like, what am I missing? Yeah. It took decades before I finally made that connection. So I feel like I have the advantage in teaching people because when I started out, I had nothing.
Right. And speaking of teaching, I missed a question from the chat room a while ago. She wants to know whether your classes work for remote viewing as well as channeling.
Yeah. The channeling book is the second part of the scrying book. I have another book. It's called The Art of Scrying and Dowsing, and that's on remote viewing. That's on not CRV, not control remote viewing, but just on remote viewing and scrying. And so the technique for my technique for doing that, for scrying and remote viewing, are very similar. It's very similar to my technique with channeling.
Mm-hmm. And
so it works. It works back and forth. And when you're channeling, you're also remote viewing. The spirit can assist you in your remote viewing too. So you can ask for a spirit to help you out. Like an angel, there's an angel that helps me out with that kind of thing if I ask them.
Wow. Yeah, it's nice to have somebody, helping you. We're not on our own apparently, and they realize that and give us help, and that's always a good thing. And as while we're talking about your classes, when do you do them? Do you do them face to face? Do you do them online? How does that work? If people are interested.
Generally, I haven't had when I wrote these books, so when they were published, COVID was at its height. So I had a couple of classes that were like kind of sneaking into somebody's house sort of thing.
Yeah.
But generally, I have a Facebook group, and I usually just sort of have an ongoing discussion going in there. I don't. The books are I'm available for questions and everything like that, but I don't have a schedule of classes. I don't teach online very much. Okay. So most of my stuff, when I do a class, it's face to face.
Okay.
I should do it online. I know I should, but it's a little bit hard for me. I'm not used to teaching online. Yeah. I taught in the classroom. I've taught in the classroom, and I've taught I was a swim before I became a nurse. Before I finished college, I was a swim teacher from the time I was about 15 till the time I finished nursing school. So I'm used to I'm used to a very physical, face-to-face type of class.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But anyways, the two groups, the name of the group. Hang on, let me get I had it right here.
I was just going to ask you because.
Okay, on Facebook. On Facebook, the name of the group is called Art of Scrying, Channeling, and Intuition.
Okay. I like that.
Okay.
You're handy dandy to get there. Yeah, okay.
Yes. And then the second group is specific for extraterrestrial. And the name of that group is Worldwide CE5, the letter CE, and then the number 5, and Spirit Contact.
Okay.
And it's basically a mediumship group that focuses mostly on extraterrestrials, but we focus on other things too. Just basically anything paranormal. So that's. But it's a group that came from a CE5 experiencer contactee group.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, now we know where people can find you, the groups
Yes.
anyway.
Yes.
Let me get back a little bit to the channeling and stuff before we have to go. Let's talk about opening and closing the contact door, because, some people choose to leave it open all the time. Others think it's a bad idea. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, telepathy is always ongoing. Okay, your telepathy doesn't usually shut off. You shut off your focus to it, but the spirits are not going to go away, and the connection between you and the spirit is not going to go away, no matter what. Once you make that connection, the connection pretty much stays there. But what you need to do is you need to shut down your mind to that part of to that world once you finish a session. And I'm not like, okay, you have to have a circle with all the names of God and everything else like that. I don't think that's particularly helpful. But what I think is that I open to contact, and this is at this point it's just a reflexive thing I do. But when you close it down, the best thing you do is to focus on something else. You close it down. I am closing down the connection now. And then you get up and you physically go do something else. Eating is the best thing to do, because eating actually focuses your mind on your stomach, and it pulls your body away from your mind, away from the nexus, away from that connection.
Yeah. It heightens our senses when we eat. So, they taste and smell and all that. We get busy.
Right. See, I believe that the perceptions come in through the same system as our physical senses. Our five senses enter our brain through the cranial nerve system. Okay, and the control place of the insertion place of the cranial nerves is mostly in the cerebellum of the brain. It's in the back of the brain, and so when you're focusing on communicating, then you're decreasing the physical sensations, and you're increasing the sensation. You're increasing the perception that's non-physical. Okay, so in order to stop that connection to the non-physical, then you have to do something that involves all your senses in the physical world. That's the best way to break that connection.
Let me jump into something else. When we need to go looking for spirits, we do, but in the book it talks about spirits that sometimes come looking for us.
Yes.
And so how do we know when somebody, they're trying to contact us?
Most of the time, a lot of times that it comes through dreams. Now, this is not in the book. This is something that I found out since that time. It's a really good idea to pay attention to your dreams, because your dreams, even regular dreams, are more than just dreams. They are connections to that other world. And there was a study done. There was a study done by Applied Precognition, a dream study that was attempted to predict outcomes of games, and this pretty much was very strongly indicated. It was a formal scientific study published in one of the parapsychology journals. It was a scientific journal of parapsychology, set up by the same people that set up Project Stargate, the SRI people. Russell Targ. I know Russell Targ's involved with that. Dr. Ed May is involved with that. And this study showed that dreams are significant and can be used to predict, like they were using the outcome of ball games. They were able to use dreams successfully to predict the outcome of ball games.
Okay.
And so that kind of spirit contact for somebody who hasn't developed that skill yet, I would say pay attention to your dreams, because that's where it's going to come. That's probably where you're going to perceive it first.
Okay. And then, how can we tell if it's safe to respond? Because, along those lines, one of our good friends, Tim Shaw, is a medium, And anybody who knows Tim is quite familiar with hearing him say, spirits lie. But you said in the book that spirits don't lie, that they're not capable of lying. So
I think it's very unlikely. Telepathic beings generally are not prone to lying because it's very difficult to hide something in telepathy.
Mm-hmm.
You can't stop somebody from perceiving something in a telepathic when you're communicating telepathically. Once you open that link, you open up everything. Okay. And so they can see you and you can see them, and it's very difficult to hide things. Even powerful telepaths cannot do that. ETs and such who use telepathy as their primary form of communication, they're not able to. They can sometimes overwhelm you, but they can't keep you from seeing, from perceiving things. So I'm kind of my experience indicates that it is not the spirits who are lying, but it is instead our own belief biases and expectations that are causing that input to become distorted. As we interpret that information, the interpretation sometimes gets messed up, especially if you know what you're asking, what the question is. When you hide the question, when you hide the target, then that eliminates a lot of that belief bias. It reduces it, not completely, but it reduces it a great deal. So that's the key to getting at the truth, is to first off hide the question. If you don't know what you're consciously trying to ask, taking it out of the grab bag, like I was talking about the grab bag technique in there. That's to prevent that from happening. That helps prevent that from happening. The second thing is, and I think this actually might be more important than using the grab bag, is that telepathy is visually based. It's image based. So when you perceive something, you should sketch it, because the sketch will almost always have some aspect of it that is truth, that is honest. If it's something that's coming in as words, a lot of times that's your brain interpreting it, and you have to be really careful with that. Like with my clairaudience, I have to be very careful with that, because that's really easily overwhelmed with belief and expectation bias. But if I have something visually coming in, then that I can sketch out, then generally that's much more accurate. And that's something that's supported in the research and parapsychology research as well. That the images and things that you can draw generally are more accurate than things that come in as words.
I want to talk about unwanted spirits, or uninvited spirits.
Uninvited guests.
Yeah. How do you get rid of them?
By focusing on a higher spirit. I've got one that kind of comes around every once in a while that pesters me and threatens me and stuff like that. And what I do is I just focus on an angel. If I feel threatened, I will focus on Michael. I have a good relationship, a good rapport with him. And all I have to do is just how can I say it? All I have to do is just completely focus and submerge my consciousness within his consciousness. Okay. If I do that, something happens and I can't perceive the lower spirit anymore.
And they just kind of
it stops.
Tail between their legs and skulk away.
Because they can't. I don't know. Like they can't hold on to me. They can't hold a connection very well. So if I'm having that, if that connection is focused on a higher spirit or another spirit that I know is friendly, if I have that focused on a friend, I mean, even Edward Kelly. I mean, if he's around, if he's, if we're talking and something like that happens, then I just pop in, do that. I don't know how it's like you're popping into each other's consciousness, into each other's mind. And it basically makes it so that nothing else can go in there.
So we have to kind of get that ability to just focus, and because some people don't.
Yeah, and the best way to do that is to start out with the paper sessions, things that you can control very easily, and and then progress. But don't panic. If an unwanted spirit comes around, pushing back and being aggressive towards that spirit is the worst thing you can do, because that just it lowers your vibration and it makes you more vulnerable to their attacks. If you focus on something else, and remember, if you focus, get all those sensory focused on something else, they can't get in. They can't do anything.
Okay. Yeah, because I think people are afraid to open a door, open the portal, and, because they just don't know what kind of stuff is going to come at that. So knowing how to take care of it is better.
Yeah. And just, all you have to do is call for help, and help will come every time. You have your guardian angel, you have your guardian spirits. You are not alone. You do not walk alone. You are well protected. You have those spirits around you. You just have to open the door completely to them, and in opening that door to them, it will close the door to anything that you don't want around.
Yeah. Okay. That makes good sense.
Another thing is that, okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that.
Okay.
A lot of people will try smudging and stuff like that. The thing is that your where attention goes, energy flows.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have a lot of fear, if you're fearful of things, if you're really stressed out, that's going to open the door. Just having those kind of emotions firing through, anger and everything else like that. You need to focus on processing those emotions and changing them into something more positive. You need to get those things straightened out, or you're going to be vulnerable to that. And that's always a work in progress, because there's been times in my life where I've been very, very negative, and not a lot of good things are going on. I've been homeless at one point in time, living in a tent, and that kind of thing makes you very, very vulnerable. But as you work through those problems, and as you get your life straightened, as you get your house in order, then those problems with the spirits will tend to become less and less. So there's a strong connection between where you're at spiritually and where those spirits that you're going to be perceiving. If you as you get your mind on higher things, then you'll be able to perceive the higher spirits more. Then you'll be communing with them more, and that will help reduce the problems with pests.
Good. Okay. Well, there's about 50 other things I could talk about and you could talk about, but time is up. So
that hour goes quick.
It does. It flies. So do you have a website, or do you have just the groups that people can get you at?
I just have I keep it simple. I have the Facebook groups. I'm a nurse by my day job is I'm an RN. So I'm still working. Although I tried to retire, I really did. It didn't work. I couldn't do it. But no, I work a fair bit. So
yeah.
I try to keep this stuff simple and things that I can focus on so that the quality is high.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
And I will email you if you want me to. I can email you the link for the Facebook groups. And that way you could share them and invite, invite people to them.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right. We're off and running and going away. So thank you so much for being in tonight and talking about your book. It was really interesting, and I'm still turning the pages and learning things. So this is good. And I want to thank everybody for listening in as well. And until next time, everybody, blessed be. And merry meet again. Good night.
This has been another edition of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Be sure to tune in next week at the same time for another great guest and more fun. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2009.
You have been listening to the Para X Radio Network.